What's up, all you lovely internet movie fans, and welcome back to Caped Commentary. I am, of course, your host, Austin Johnson, and I have a packed show full of movie news to discuss and a lot of DC and Marvel specific topics like that Peacemaker finale. How does it set up Man of Tomorrow, and was it a miss, or were people overreacting to that? We got some exciting movie updates in the pipeline over at DC and a TV show waiting to start filming, just waiting budgetary approval. Some very interesting Marvel updates around X-Men 97 Season 2. Our look at the villain for the first time. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man with some very, very cool updates I'm absolutely love and excited for. Vision Quest, the more I hear about the show, the more I look forward to it. And then some other things like Fast X, possibly canceled, and Predator Badlands getting a PG-13 rating. Lots to discuss today, guys. This is Caped Commentary, like I said, Austin Johnson. What's up? And let's dive into all of the topics right now. First off, let's just get started with some Fast and the Furious news. I know for all my family out there, this could be tough, but it's not confirmed, but it's looking like Fast 11, Fast and Furious 11, whatever you want to call it. It could be on the chopping blocks. It might not be happening. There's some bad information out there right now that it is way too expensive. They looked at how much Fast X costs, and they have to slash that budget considerably if they even want to see Fast 11 be made. Now, this should come as no surprise. Fast X, if you didn't know, was one of the most expensive movies ever done. It's insane how much that movie cost. And this is a franchise that I feel like has really lost its luster and its way. Like, Fast 4, 5, 6, even to 7 were very good. I think some of the best of that franchise. Fast 8, to an extent, was not bad, but they've really lost the plot with these past two, and like, we gotta tone it down. So they want to bring it back to like the street racing aspects. Vin Diesel has obviously come out and said, he's like, I want to bring it back to the street racing side that we got it from initially. That's probably the studio telling him like, hey Vin, you gotta say these things. But it's just way too expensive. We gotta get the cost down to around 200 million, maybe 225 to 250 at a maximum for the budget. And it's gonna be tough for them to do it. We really have to really consider cutting costs, some of the visuals, get back to that street racing. We can't be going to space with cars. So it's really like in the air if Fast 11 will happen. I have my doubts, to be honest, because Jason Momoa came out recently and said he hasn't seen anything for it. No script, no nothing. Like, this movie is really, really having problems, and I don't know. I would say right now, I would say it's like a 30 to 40% chance this gets made on the high side. And because look at the returns at the box office. They've diminished over the past two movies. Like, they haven't been what it should be for this franchise. So they have to really get their shit in order to really understand the budgets and get those down if they want to see a sequel. Because the last one, if you didn't know, it left on a massive cliffhanger. Like, Jason Momoa's, his villain character won, and he was also the best part of that movie. So he has to come back. So you're going to have to get your budgets in line, get your cast to take maybe pay cuts or something, shoot in like these strategic areas, maybe go back to LA, get back to your roots of street racing, because this movie, if it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen if you don't get those costs down. So that's a very curious situation. I'm very curious to see what happens with this movie. All right, moving on to something I think a lot of people were worried about, but they shouldn't be. Predator Badlands officially will have a PG-13 rating. The first of the franchise, I might add, and I think that's what worried people, because they think Predator, oh, we have to have, like, it has to be just nonstop violence and like gore and all this stuff. But think about it, with a PG-13 rating, you can still get away with a lot. And think where this movie takes place, on an alien planet. That's why it has that PG-13 rating, because all the violence, I think it's still going to be extremely violent, is going to be happening with non-human organisms, like alien species, and their blood will not be red, and so that is why this movie will have a PG-13 rating. I still think it will be as violent as all of our Predator movies that we've got in the past, but it's just not going to have that R rating, because it's not going to have the human killing aspect, I think, to it. So I think people freaked out on something that they should not be worried about. I think this movie is going to be very good. I'm extremely excited for it. The visuals look great. The trailers got me very excited for this movie, and I think with what they've done with Alien Earth and then like with Prey, very excited for this movie. So I'm very curious to see if you guys, was anyone actually worried? Like, were you genuinely worried this was not going to work? I think people overreacted. It's going to be fine. Relax, as Aaron said, and let's see what happens with Badlands. Now, to some things I'm very excited for on the DC and Marvel front. So let's knock out Marvel, then we'll transition to like DC, and we'll conclude with Peacemaker, because that finale is very divisive apparently online. So with Marvel and New York Comic Con that happened, we got a ton of TV and animation news that I absolutely love. X-Men 97, we got our first look at Apocalypse for Season 2. He looks glorious. He looks outstanding. I love the visuals. I am so excited to see him brought on the animation for X-Men 97 because that first season was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. So I'm very curious to see how he's going to fit into the overall story. We kind of can know based off of the cliffhanger for the first season where they're going, but I'm extremely excited for this. I'm excited to see him on the screen, what he's going to do, how they're going to deal with him, and then multiple storylines are going to be unraveling at the same time. On that same front now, with Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, we got confirmation for Season 2. We're getting Venom. I love that. That's so cool. We're getting Venom for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. That's awesome. I can't wait to see what he's going to do, how he's going to interact with Spider-Man, the overall story that they go. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, what a delight that show was. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and so I'm so excited for Season 2. And good news with X-Men 97 and Spider-Man, those are going to be annual releases yearly. I love that. And that also is going to be with Daredevil Born Again, which will also be an annual release. And we know that Season 2 for Daredevil Born Again is coming in March. Huge news. I love this. Is so exciting. I am so bullish on the future of Marvel television for the animated shows and their live action. Very, very bullish. Massive potential because there's also the Punisher special presentation that's coming as well. So excited for that. And we know also for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man that he's going to be donning the red suit Daredevil will be for Season 2 as well. So excited for that. I'm very bullish on these things specifically. And then Vision Quest, a show that the more I hear about, I extremely get excited for because there's so many things that we've heard about the show that are officially confirmed. So these aren't rumors. These aren't this is officially confirmed by multiple reputable outlets. Like we're getting Ultron, James Spader back. We're getting Jocasta, the girlfriend of Ultron. We're getting Edith. We're getting Friday. And one of the more intriguing things that we heard recently coming out of New York Comic Con as well, we're getting all those characters live action versions of them, like human AI versions of Edith, of Friday, of Dumb E. Like, that's intriguing. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to pull it off and how it fits into the Vision Quest story narratively. So that has my brain wondering. I ultimately think with White Vision, because it's come out officially confirmed like by the people who are in charge of the show, that he's going to have the memories of our old Vision. So I think these like humanoid versions of these AI characters, they're going to be like Vision's like manifestation, his like view of how these characters would look. But we know Ultron and Jocasta will be the main villains of this show. I'm very curious to see where it's going to go because we know this is technically like the third part of a 3-part show arc from WandaVision to Agatha and now with Vision Quest. I'm extremely excited for this show with what they're going to do, everything that we know about this show. There's a lot that could happen with it, and I think it could be extremely, extremely important to the future of Marvel, but we shall see. So let me know down below if you are excited for Vision Quest. What are these leaks, or I guess like confirmations tell you about the show, and are you looking forward to it? Because, I mean, just getting James Spader back in the Marvel Universe is something that just puts me over the top in terms of enjoyment and excitement. I love James Spader. Been a fan of him for years. Ultron was extremely underrated. Age of Ultron is an extremely underrated movie. So I am so excited for this. So hearing all this information, just over the moon. Cannot wait for Vision Quest to come out. We also know that Wonder Man, like we got a trailer for Wonder Man, I will say that. Watch the trailer if you want. I actually will not watch it because I try to stick away from like these last like trailers in terms of the show when it comes out because we're only a couple months away. So it comes out in December. I'm extremely excited for it because I think it's going to be like a interesting commentary on like superheroes because we know Wonder Man is very meta in terms of what's going to happen with it. So just keep your eye out on that if you want to watch a trailer, and that show comes out in a couple of months, so be ready for that. So a lot of good stuff in the way in terms of shows at Marvel. Now, let's now pivot into DC, and there's a lot on the DC side of things that we need to talk about, and I am extremely excited to talk about. So let's first dive into James Gunn, and we know that he has 2 movies and 1 show in the works at DC. They're in the pipeline, and the only thing keeping them from starting shooting and production and filming on these is the budgets. These movies and this 1 show only have budgetary constraints from them starting the filming. It got me wondering, what could these movies and the 1 TV show possibly be? I think there's an easy explanation for one of these movies specifically, so I'll get that right out of the way. It's got to be Batman. It makes the most sense. Batman the Brave and the Bold. We heard so much about this. We know there's the director. We know the writer for it. Oh, we don't know the writer, but James Gunn has said that they have a writer for that show and on that movie, and we know it's coming before 2030. So I think Brave and the Bold makes the most sense. I also think that we're going to get our Batman announcement next year at Comic-Con. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think we'll start filming either later that year or very beginning of the following year. So I think they get that out around fall. Like, we'll get that somewhere out in 28 to 29, I believe, for Brave and the Bold. But I think that's one of the movies for sure that's in the pipeline. It's just they're trying to figure out the budgets and iron out for that. The other movie, I think it's either Titans. So I think Titans could be either a movie or a show, or Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman, I think, makes the most sense because we know from Zaslav and James Gunn that DC, there are 4 key core characters to the DC universe. Superman, Supergirl. One has his movie already, and the one is coming next year. We know Batman, and then we know his movie is coming at some point before 2030, and I theorize that he is one of the movies in development. I think Wonder Woman makes the most sense. Getting those 4 movies out and into like the audiences so we start being with these characters as they build up. I think Wonder Woman is the other movie, and I'm very curious to see their portrayal of Wonder Woman, how they like deal with Diana. What is she going to be set in present or past day? I would imagine it would be more of like a present day thing, but James Gunn has said they're going to have projects set in like different time periods, so they could do that. But it would be interesting to see if they do that because of what they did with the first Wonder Woman for the DCEU. But I think Brave and the Bold and Wonder Woman are the 2 movies that are in the pipeline waiting for budgets to be officially approved. And I think if we can get Batman and Wonder Woman cast next year and announced at Comic-Con by DC, whew, that would be massive. And I would absolutely love that. I would be a fan of it. And hey, do it. Please do that. I want those announcements because there's so many fan casts out there. It's just like, I guess guys see who's playing him so I can get more and more excited for that because DC has so many great characters and properties. So that's just, we'll talk about that. But the one TV show, like I said, it could be Titans. Teen Titans is like definitely a viable option. And that was where I was really going to go with that. But then one clicked and it makes the most sense. It's got to be Booster Gold. Because we know they've talked about Booster for a while now. Gunn has said that he's working on that. They're working on that. They have a script for it. They're very excited for the character, what they want to do with him. The show for Booster Gold makes the most sense. And he's a character that James Gunn, I think, would absolutely excel at. And he would love to kind of bring to the big screen if possible. So I think Booster Gold is the one show that I think they are in development for. And they're waiting to start filming if they nail it on the budget for it. I think Booster Gold makes the most sense because I think it's going to play a big, important role in the future of the DC universe. But we'll save that for later on that discussion. But I think Booster Gold is the TV show. I'm curious, what do you guys think in terms of what are the 2 movies that could be in the pipeline waiting for filming for budgetary approval? What's the one show? Could it be Brave and the Bold, Wonder Woman, Booster Gold? Do you have any other theories? Could it be Teen Titans or another mystery thing out there? Let me know your thoughts and comment down below, and I look forward to hearing all your crazy theories for these. So, let's talk about Peacemaker and that finale, because I know there's a lot of chatter out there right now. People were like, James Gunn, this is his miss. This is really his first miss. I'm not a big fan of this. Oh, this was terrible. What a bad season. First of all, the season, fantastic. I loved Peacemaker season 2. It was great. I'm not the biggest fan of this last episode. I think there are things that they could have done better, and I think I see the through lines of what he's trying to set up. That makes the most sense. I'm excited to talk about those theories in just a moment. But overall, this didn't really feel like a season finale to me for what they've done with this show so far. And let me just get out of the way. The 2 concerts were a little bit much, even for me. I was even watching like, all right, like, okay, like, I get this is the music, but we can kind of get through these a little bit quicker. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that. It didn't necessarily just kill the episode for me, but could have done that a lot better, in my humble opinion. But overall, this episode, there were so many things that, like, the Frank Grillo, Rick Flag Sr., that was very peculiar because he had acted a certain way, and we had seen him in a certain light from Creature Commandos to Superman to the first 7 episodes of this season alone of Peacemaker. He was one completely different way in this last episode than all those prior appearances. It was very, very odd to see him partying it up and doing all this stuff with the Lex people that he had real trepidations about working with, and he didn't like Lex clearly. He wanted, him and Lex had a common goal, obviously, to get the metahumans off of Earth, but their dynamic didn't say that he was ready to cozy up with all these just tech people and Otis and all of them and Halperson from LexCorp. Like, that one kind of took me out too. I did not really vibe with that, and it kind of didn't make sense to me. But then, like, with Peacemaker, the character, he doesn't do much. If you look at it overall for this season, he doesn't have a lot of, like, action scenes. I know this is like a overall, you're telling the story of him. It's not an action genre show. It's like a drama comedy related show. So I don't need action, but his only action sequence of this whole season was when he killed all of the people on Earth X, or their version of Earth X, who actually were the good guys on that Earth. So, and that was a funny scene. Like, looking back on it now, knowing who they are, it's very funny that he just wipes them out, and they're actually very good, and he would be on their side if he was actually knew that. But how they handled Chris this season didn't. It was just, it felt like there was something missing there. And then that ending where they put him on, like, spoiler alert, obviously this is all spoilers for that last episode. So if you're still watching, you should not be, because if you haven't seen that, this is spoilers. When Rick Flag, they kidnap him in the middle of the night and drop him on what we find out is salvation, like it's Earth's salvation. And this is a big deal. I'm going to explain, like I said. He's kidnapped, and Rick Flag says, this is for killing, like, my boy and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, like, so that's our resolution. And the show ends with him being stuck on that Earth, or in that dimension, whatever you want to call it. Just, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot in this episode that they could have done differently. And I think they really tried to set up the future without, like, overly explaining it. And they might have needed to do that, because there's just certain things out there, like, okay, I don't want to be nitpicky also. Like I said, I overall thoroughly enjoyed the season, and I thought it was very, very good. But just this last episode, I think it was kind of a miss for me in terms of the opportunity that it had to really set up the future and everything. And I think a lot of it is just due to overhyping it from, like, people out there, like even James Gunn himself, who we shouldn't be surprised. Like, he said The Flash was one of the greatest comic movies of all time. For me, I know movies are all subjective. The Flash was not very good in my opinion. So him saying that this episode was one of the best things he's ever written, and there's massive cameos, like, I don't need cameos, and I actually kind of hate cameos that are just installed for the purpose of being cameos. If they further the plot and narrative story, I love them, but I'm really indifferent to them. Like, I'm not someone who just shits on cameos just for the heck of it. I have no opinion on them, honestly. But him saying that hyped people up. They're like, I think they overhyped this show, and it got people to speculate and think about things, and ultimately those things did not appear. But like I said, overall, I think the season was a success. It was very good. John Cena's acting was phenomenal throughout the season. He was great. Jennifer Holland, thoroughly enjoyed her. I know a lot of people don't like Economos sometimes, and they don't like him, like the way his humor is written at times for the show. I'm a big fan of Economos. I loved it. I thought the show overall was a success. It was very good. Just last episode, if you can get one wrong out of 8, that's 12%, you're fine. Like 88, that's still a very good show. You're not out of the part with the show, and I think this overall was a success. But just the cliffhanger ending of leaving him on this Salvation Earth, just overall, and like the Frank Grillo, like I said, there's just certain things I didn't like about this episode. But it sets up very interesting threads. So if you didn't know, and I was just made aware of this when I did some like research onto like what the Salvation is. I'm not gonna go too far into it because I'm not too knowledgeable myself. I've never read that run, but essentially, like that Salvation Earth is a training ground in the comics, at least. We don't know if they're adapting this for the DCU, so we shall see. But it's a training ground for parademons, overseen by Desaad, and like the U.S. government wants to dump all of their villains there, like they're doing in Peacemaker. That's the ultimate goal, with Frank Grillo and Lex. They want to put all of the metahumans onto the Salvation Earth. So in the comics, they put all of the villains there. A bunch of these factions form, one's led by Lex Luthor, one's led by Joker. They go up against each other. So it's interesting, and overall Darkseid is made aware of this. He comes to find us out, and he basically recruits all these people. So I think that's intriguing, and I think they're adapting loose aspects of that. James Gunn's already said that, and we know they're not going to do the Joker and Lex specific storyline. So it's pretty interesting because we hear like these snarls and these growling as Peacemaker is dropped off on that Earth. We don't see anything, and it cuts off. So I think as we're gonna start seeing more and more metahumans be put there throughout the through lines in the years leading up to Man of Tomorrow. And I'm very curious to see if this is like eventually like all of these villains come back to our Earth, and it's like Lex and Superman have to team up to stop them, or what the case may be. But there's a lot that could happen. There's a lot that could do with that. So I'm very intrigued to see where they go with that. Like I said, ultimately, I'm very intrigued to see where it goes. I like Peacemaker as a whole, and that's all I got for you guys on that. So I'm very curious your thoughts on Peacemaker as a whole, the episode, and everything else in between. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. What a great show packed full of movie news, and I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday here on Cape Commentary. Like I said, I am your host, Austin Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you next Tuesday at 3 p.m. for another episode recapping all the movie news for the coming days. Love you guys. See you then. Peace.